On today's show, let's look ahead to the Cavs' second preseason game against the Philadelphia 76ers and more. I want to thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in was from our friends at Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple and Spotify. I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs and the NBA for places like Diamond UPROXX and SB Nation for the Sword. That man over there, if you're watching on YouTube, is Evan Dammarell, the proprietor of Down Euclid, also at Fear the Sword as well. The man's behind the virtual glass in spirit today is Jake Merrier. Check him out and check all his music out on Spotify. Okay. Evan, Cavs-76ers round 2. It's obviously scintillating, high-end, 5 Michelin star preseason basketball. I'll faux optimism aside for me there. But
do Michelin stars even go that high? I thought it was on a scale of 1 to 3.
I'm just saying it's so high that it's like, gold-plated.
It's so high that we could be called Locked On Chase Down at this point. That's how optimistic we are about the team.
Wow, that's shots fired. That wasn't necessary. But
it's in a good way. They are the voice of the fans, and they have every right to be optimistic. I am very optimistic about this Cavs team.
We will get to about how sure we are about all of that in segment 2 because I'm a curmudgeon. But Evan, all I really care about in round 2 of Cavs-76ers, the second of 4 Cavs preseason games, first one at home, they'll play Atlanta on Wednesday, Orlando on Friday before they play Toronto next week in the season opener on the 19th. All I really care about is what the threes look like. What does Karis LeVert look like? What does Okoro look like? What do all of these options look like? I don't obviously the Donovan Mitchell stuff continues to be fun. And obviously there's not going to be any Evan Mobley. Maybe we'll get an update on Monday and kind of where he's at, if we'll see him in the preseason, if we'll see him on opening night. I just sort of assume that all I'm really going to take advantage of in watching this game is really just thinking about what the threes look like.
I mean, yeah, I think that's just the kind of the crux of this argument because JB Bickerstaff is always a coach that's never going to show his hand in terms of what he is planning and scheming, and we kind of alluded to this where the Cavs, I just don't think realistically can. I mean, they could if they wanted to, on a night-to-night basis, switch out the starting 3 spot, but you need some form of familiarity and stability just in your starting 5 and just in terms of your rotation. And I think him kind of putting the timeline on himself of, hey, we'll have this figured out by the end of preseason is certainly bold, but we'll get another shot and another crack at it in Monday night's game against Philly because Karis LeVert got the start in game 1. Maybe Dean Wade gets the start in game 2. Maybe it's Isaac Okoro. Heck, maybe it's Jetty Osman or Dylan Windler if he's available. But to go back to my point, the Cavs have 4 of their 5 stars penciled in. So figuring out who's starting at the 3 is going to be the narrative of this offseason. I think JB kind of tongue-in-cheek saying that we as in the media and fans kind of obsess about this more than he does because he thinks it's a problem that'll just figure itself and solve itself. But we need something to kind of stand out because after game 1, nothing really stood out on who realistically could be the starting 3 for the Cavs heading into the season opener against Toronto in less than 10 days time now.
I think that's right. I think how just it all functions, with the starters and how much they play is it's just not to. And I understand why Bickerstaff would sort of say that because I do think that's the case. But we live in a world where we see so little. This is if you're a fan or you're a member of the media. If you're a media member like us or Fedor or Rousseau or Jason Lloyd or whomever, Tom Withers, whoever covers this team. We can do the behind the scenes asking what's going on, picking people's brains, coaches, front office people, agents, whatever. And that's only for us, we have to just trust the narration.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't get to see practice. We don't get to see what they're actually doing in practice. If you get to go to media availability and you see stuff, it is like the end of practice when they're doing shooting drills, like they're not doing like live stuff, and you're really getting to see the nitty gritty of it. It's such a different. I feel like I've said this about 30 times this summer. It is such a different reporting experience than you get with NFL coverage. When reporters get to go to practice for extended periods of time and look at this stuff and kind of give, if you're the other person in this conversation, the fans, like the idea of like what is actually happening, what is going on. Preseason is like basketball is like this weird combination of basketball that you're glad is back and it is fun to watch. And it was like very fun to watch Donovan Mitchell and all of this stuff. It is also just like so hard to take a ton away from it that matters. Like even just with the Cavs specifically of it, it's like Evan Mobley is not playing.
Yeah.
How these threes look, or like how bench players look, or who plays well, like it's hard to even, like Evan Mobley is going to be a massive part of this team. Like, and it's hard to even know what some of this looks like. Like there's some benefit, but it's like, okay, one of the three most important players on this team probably isn't playing right now because of an injury, and you're just like, I don't know what to take from some of this without him kind of in that picture, aside from the fact that it's fun that basketball's back.
Yeah, that's kind of the crux of it, is it's fun that basketball is back, but I wonder with the severity of the ankle sprain. I mean, like, I know the Cavs put out a formal statement saying like, hey, Evan Mobley sidelined for the next 2 weeks. They haven't said anything about Dylan Windler being out, but it is known within the Cavs sphere that JB Bickerstaff said like, hey, Dylan can't play right now, he's rehabbing. But just in terms of Mobley, who is, like you said, a key cog to what this team is trying to do and what they're trying to build, like, yes, he gets a lot of reps in practice and in camp with his teammates and the coaching staff and everything else. And I think he has a familiarity within the system and what the Cavs want him to do. But those live reps that he's missing out on, whether it's against Philly or in both of these games against Atlanta on Wednesday, or to wrap things up in Orlando for the last preseason game, like those are going to be lost opportunities for the Cavs to kind of just find a little bit of stability and normalcy just in their new offensive system and just how defensively they're going to function. And also just what the heck is Evan Mobley in year two? Like, he is the greatest mystery for me because I want to watch him play, because he has mentioned so many different things. I'm just like, it melts the brain a little bit and boggles the mind is a better way to put it, because he could be such a multifaceted player in so many facets of the game that the Cavs could be a wildly unpredictable team, and they already are because of the Donovan Mitchell factor and just kind of the expectations they have going into this upcoming season. But Mobley really is truly the biggest variable of all of this for me, other than like maybe Isaac Okoro, if he's able to shoot a 3-pointer reliably. Like, he's a variable too, but like Mobley and what he brings to the table could really shift a lot of stuff for the Cavs pretty quickly, and not having him out there is just kind of stinks for what they're trying to build.
The other part of this is that, like, as we're recording on Sunday night, we don't know exactly like how long guys might play. Like, are they just going to play a half again? Are they going to get a longer run? Or like, how are they going to approach that? It's just sort of like we're in the waiting game for October 19th more than anything else. Evan, let's end on this. Is there anyone that you are most of the wings, based on what we saw in game one, based on camp stuff, whatever, that you are kind of curious to see in game two? For me, it's LeVert, just because I want to see how he follows up that, and I feel like starting him again would make sense just from a rhythm perspective if you really want to try that out. But is anyone pop to you as someone you'd particularly want to see for preseason game two?
So this is tricky. I think it is Karis LeVert, but more so Isaac Okoro, because we saw, and I agree with your sentiment that, like, do you want to see him do more of this just with the starting five? Like, you're taking the ball out of his hands. How comfortable does he look out there on the floor? But I just want to see Okoro more so just maybe have a clear idea of what he is in this offensive system for the Cavs, because you saw glimpses of it. Like, he functioned really well next to Donovan Mitchell, but is there more maybe the Cavs can show and reveal their hand a little bit more? So I'll be watching him a lot, and I think Wade too, just because his story is incredible to go from an undrafted guy who may not even make it in this league to possibly starting for a playoff caliber team that became one overnight. It is really cool to see it happen, and kind of fits what the Cavs are trying to build, but it's all of them, let's just be frank, but mostly Okoro for me.
Before we're going to break, did you see Andre Drummond's 3-3 from 3 in this
preseason
game?
I wanted to text it to you, but I just ethered myself at that point. When he did the ice in his veins after the fact, I'm like, this guy.
Amazing. No comment. That and Donovan Mitchell's Mets tweets are like probably my favorite things I can see
Hey
on
man,
Twitter right now.
Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and Evan Mobley were at the Guardians game and watched that.
And Isaiah Mobley, Isaiah Mobley erasure, yeah.
They were all at the Guardians game for all 15 innings, and then they're at the Mets game last night. So credit to them for their dedication to baseball. Maybe they
honestly love baseball. Baseball's great.
Hopefully Donovan Mitchell's okay because the Mets ain't doing too hot right now. But
not great. He did just tweet that he's more worried about Trent Grisham than Juan Soto, which is just like it's a man Trent Grisham out here like Aaron Judge. Real tough stuff for Mets fans out there. If you know one, buy them a beer. Okay, after the break, we are gonna get into how sure we are about some of this cast. We sure about some of the best case scenarios with this team. It's something I think, an exercise I think we need to do before we get into the regular season and are starting to see it unfold. But first, tell everyone about LinkedIn. These days, every new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. All it takes is filling out the right information, clicking a few buttons, and you're going to be searching for that next great team member. Then you add your job and the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile and spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience. You can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Finding the right team member is paramount to ending the year strong. This year, we added a new team member. Shout out to you, Jake Stevens. And our show's gotten better. We've become a better team here at Locked On Cavs with Jake in the fold. And we're going to end our year strong because of it. And you need the right tools to find those right team members. LinkedIn is that tool. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, back here in Locked On Cavs, I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. Evan, here's what I'm thinking about this. So, in thinking about the East and trying to sort of put these teams into tiers, and me thinking about, okay, who's going to make the playoffs? Who's going to be who from the who made the semis last year? Who's maybe most likely to get back there? All these different questions. I'm wondering like how we should think about the Cavs hitting the best version of themselves. Let's say and that means like avoiding the play-in. Getting most of these optimal outcomes in a very competitive East, right? I think there's a lot of reason to think that could be the case, but I'm also just like wondering, we're going to find out, like, can Dean Wade be a 30-minute of the game guy maybe, or 25 versus an 18? Can Karis LeVert fit a very different role than some of the roles he's been asked to play before? Can Iskor hit enough shots to be like a quality NBA wing? There's just like a lot of ifs and there's a lot like to say, look, these four guys are going to be awesome. They're really young. They're ascending in a lot of ways. They're going to cover up for a lot of the things you're unsure about. I'm just curious of like when it comes down to maximizing what this team is, how confident they should really be about just some of these all these kind of question marks kind of breaking right. If they feel good about like their depth, for instance, because I think everything beyond the top four, there's a lot of question marks as I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. If you look at the grand scheme of the Eastern Conference, it's like the Cavs, depending on how you feel about the Bulls, either are the second or third best team in the Central Division right now, with Milwaukee being the clear #1, and then obviously Indiana and Detroit kind of being suboptimal, to say the least, as a team. And in the grand scheme of the East, you have Brooklyn, who still is a bit of a wild card, but they're loaded with talent. You have Miami, you have, like I said, Milwaukee, you have Chicago, who should be in the mix too. You have Toronto, who's a very good team. I think New York is going to make a push, but I don't know how good they're going to be. Like, it's going to be very competitive in the Eastern Conference in the grand scheme of things. Atlanta as well, who made another power move to get DeJounte Murray. Like, it's tough, and I think your assessment is fair because the Cavs are somewhat top-heavy, where like they have a clear top four, and then they have, just to round things out, Isaac Okoro, Kevin Love, Ricky Rubio, Karis LeVert, maybe Robin Lopez as well. You have Dean Wade in that mix too. you have to kind of cobble something together and figure out the rotations and depth chart on this team. And I think the Cavs need to just be a little bit dynamic. And I think it's going to take them time to learn on the fly, especially just with the weight of expectations kind of weighing on them just in general. So it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a trial by fire for them. They have a ton of training opportunities right now and practice opportunities because it's the preseason, but those go away eventually when the regular season gets rolling. So the Cavs kind of have to pick and choose what they want to learn and grow and develop on. And something that sticks with me at least is Donovan Mitchell shared with me, he's like, at the end of the day, we're a defensive first team. I'm paraphrasing this. And he's like, we can always lean on our defense and expect that to, not expect, but like rely on that to carry us through games when our offense bogs down or our shots aren't falling. So if the Cavs are made true to their identity, they could break through, and then they have all this youth, athleticism, and energy on their side that they could push themselves out of that playing conversation and make themselves like, obviously not a top tier contending team, but flirting with that trajectory and maybe just setting themselves up nicely, not for this season, but for the seasons to come. And then also they can have a clear indication of this is what they need to fix and improve upon in order to ensure that they can kind of make that next step and break on through to the other side.
Is there one of these things that are sort of question marks that you feel like would be the most impactful for them swinging? Because like I think it's like I know like Evan Mobley is gonna and Jared Allen are gonna solve so many defensive issues. I still think like a wing who really stands out is gonna help. That's why like Okoro is such an important swing player, right? Like if he can be the 3-and-D guy, that would mean a lot. And like honestly, just like can some of these depth pieces prove themselves would be a big deal, because like I think this roster will still evolve going forward. But like if Dean Wade and maybe Lamar Stevens and Okoro and like these guys can kind of coalesce, or there's a trade to be made that can help you fix some of that stuff, that will go a long way, I think, to them feeling very good about this. And it's just also just like, look, I think part of the reason I'm thinking about this more than just sort of, okay, the upper echelon of this stuff is I think the East is just going to be so freaking competitive. It is.
Oh yeah.
Just going to be rough. It's going to be like a all-out brawl for these teams to do it. And like you also, like if you're even in the East, yes, there's going to be teams that are going to be bad. Like I think Charlotte's going to be horrendous. I think the Pacers have a lot of incentive to lose. But like
Pistons.
Well, the Pistons are ascending. I think the Knicks are going to
Magic. Like those are like your four bad, truly bad teams of the East, and then like you have some kind of crappy teams in between, and then the cream.
But even look at Orlando and Detroit. Detroit is going to be like, I think, pretty feisty, and I think Orlando has injury like that's going to allow them to be feisty. I don't think like there are like super easy games for you to just sort of like coast through. Like you're gonna have to maximize this whole 82 game regular season in a lot of ways, and like I think that's where some of your issues can come and go, and how they manage some of that's going to be really fascinating.
Fascinating is a good way to put it. I am interested to see how they handle it on a night-to-night basis, because also not just the fact that, like, yes, I agree, Dwayne Casey is a very good coach. The Pistons are loaded with young talent. I think they're going to be bad just because they're so young and inexperienced, but they have some interesting veterans that they aren't like looking to offload, and like Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks, and just pretty much any scraps the Knicks wanted to give them at that point just so they could go after Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell. But either way, it's going to be tough because the Cavs, like you said, just can't take a night off, and that kind of makes it fun at least. But also the Cavs do have that weight of expectations because they made a power move. They cashed in their assets to go, the majority of their key assets to go get Donovan Mitchell, and now that kind of heightens expectations, and I think other teams are going to show up and be ready to play the Cavs because they maybe want to put them in their place and say, like, listen, they may have gotten Donovan Mitchell, and they may be like the hottest team in the GM surveys, but they really aren't anything because we just kicked the crap out of them. And like the Cavs are going to have to deal with situations like that every night as well.
I'm going to be fascinated by how a lot of this just unfolds. Like Okoro is just going to be something like, you know, he took 2 threes the other night, missed them both. Like, this is shooting just like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Like, what is the vibe on some of this stuff? I will just be very curious about. This is maybe the first time I've said vibe in talking about the 2022-23 seasons. This is growth for me. I know, I'm going to have to start turning that vibe dial up a little bit more. All right, after the break, we're going to talk about another vibe. And that's just how, like, we're going to take a moment and we're going to talk about how loaded and fun the Cavs, the Guardians, and the Browns at this moment sort of are, and like what this fall can kind of feel like. Maybe that's tough to hear after the Browns game. So if you're a diehard, but we're going to try to dive into the fun of all of what's going on right now after this. But Evan's first going to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline.
You're absolutely correct, my friend. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college sports betting needs and sports info in general this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including the upcoming weekend slate of games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Just go to the website today and use your mobile device to learn about the trends in action. For instance, Evan Mobley is plus 1,600 to win Defensive Player of the Year, and the Cavs over-under, meanwhile, is set for 46.5 after they got Donovan Mitchell. That was a bet, man. I take the over. So, if you want to go check it out, check out betonline.net, where the game starts.
All right, back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast. I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. Evan, I gotta say, it's a very fun time in Cleveland. Like, I think if you're a fan, I think if you're a media member, I think if you're just someone who like has a pulse and is interested in sports, I think there's just like a lot to be really enthused by right now. The Browns obviously are their own sort of thing, and like they're kind of off to the side in sort of weird Browns limbo world because they're 2-3 and disappointing, and there's a certain quarterback situation that will a lot of money reasons why like a certain guy way back, all that stuff. Listen to Locked On Browns if you want to navigate all of that. The Guardians,
you're a fighter pilot. You landed that gracefully.
I did not. I crashed that. I'm not Tom Cruise. The Cavs are like this in this very fun place where like the energy coming off of them is just like so fun, so optimistic. The Guardians
vibes,
just want to,
if you will.
Really good vibes. The Guardians just won a playoff game and beat the Rays 2-0 in the 15th inning with a rookie outfielder who comes up to the SpongeBob SquarePants theme song, hitting a solo home run into the bleachers. And like this team is really fun. They play a weird style of baseball. They're really annoying to play for other teams. Like, and like they're good. And like, it has been very rare in Cleveland history for like all of these teams to be relevant and like have expectations and have like people really into it. And you know, it's not going to be quite, I think, the highs of like the World Series and the Cavs coming back after winning the title in 2016. That is maybe the most insane I've ever seen downtown, seen the Rapid, like just seen everything, just how nuts it was. But this is like a very fun time, and I think like we should, even if we're not like getting into the rooting interest of this and all of that, like I think it's very fun to consider just like how cool that is, that like there's just a lot of energy around all of this right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like I live outside of downtown proper now. I used to live downtown, but I went to the Wine and Gold scrimmage on Saturday, and that was right before the Guardians game, and downtown was pretty busy at 8:39 in the morning, like just with traffic and people out and about, and just kind of, I mean, it was a beautiful fall day, a great day for baseball in general, and obviously like a classic game if you were a Cleveland fan, maybe if you're not a Tampa Bay fan, but I don't think Tampa Bay fans really exist. Either way, baseball, not football, I know about your dad, Chris. It's cool, and as somebody who has expanded their range a little bit to the Cleveland sports scene at large and still trying to like get a full grasp of baseball and football, like it's a good problem to have, I think I'd say, where it's fun covering all three teams. We talk about this a lot, like the Cavs just being really good last season. Like we were already excited about the potential of this team. I think people always just like to know like we're a little bit more down on the Cavs just because Chris has jaded me a little bit ever since I met him. If you know, you know. But
it's just a kind way of saying that I am dead inside.
You're Chris Manning.
Yeah, I'm me. I am.
You're you. You're unapologetically yourself.
Okay,
There's nothing wrong with that.
Here's the thing. My wife, my wonderful wife, Lane can confirm this. I like was so juiced from watching that Guardians play game over the weekend, and I like went and took a walk, like a long walk after to like calm down.
That's the most Chris Manning story I ever heard. Is I took a long walk after the Guardians won a classic.
I went to a nearby park, and it was like me and a bunch of old dudes who were walking their dogs, and I was like, "These are my people. These are my people here."
Your kin, if you will.
Yeah.
But that game was excellent. I think the Cavs just being in a fun spot. A lot of it is luck, of course, just with how like this whole team building process goes. I think the Guardians remaining frugal. Like, they have one of the lowest payrolls in baseball, but like they're such a young and fun and exciting team, and like they have a ton of young prospects like waiting in the wings to kind of like make an impact next season. Like, the Guardians are going to be very good for years to come, as long as they hit it right. Because again, this isn't a surefire thing. Like, there's going to be a lot of, figuring out and the ickiness of it all too. But thankfully, I'm a podcaster and not a baseball executive, so I don't have to worry about it. But the football situation notwithstanding with Deshaun Watson, like, they're a fun and exciting team. I think they do have some fair questions about them, but they have Nick Chubb, they have Myles Garrett, they have Jadeveon Clowney, like Denzel Ward's a local kid. He's a fun story. Like, there's a lot of cool things. And like, to Chris's point, you've never really had all three hit at the same time like this. And it's cool to be a Cleveland fan. I think like being the butt of the joke has kind of become endearing to some people, but now like, hey, these three teams may not win a championship within the next 5 years, but like they're going to be a presence in their respective leagues for the next 5 years. And like, that's really fun to think about, and it makes it even more exciting to like talk about it too.
Even just like the Cavs specific side of it, it's like,
yeah,
I think this is like such an ascending different thing that I think even if we're monitoring it and thinking about it and talking about it, this is going to be a Cavs rise, I think, in a very different way than like we've seen before. Like, number one, like it's been 20, like LeBron he was local, he's this generational talent, all of this stuff. Then he comes back and that's like just like an escalation. And it's like that whole thing was crazy. The parade that ultimately happens is one of the craziest things I think we've ever seen.
Oh, millions and millions of people. I was talking to Spencer German about this. He's just like, you watch the Guardians lose the World Series. Like, yes, people in Chicago came out for the Cubs, but like you look at teams like the Rams, they barely had anyone show up. People like the Lakers, like people barely showed up when the Lakers won the championship in the Disney bubble. But like the Cavs, like billions of people.
Okay, but the bubble's like its own thing. You can't really like.
I know, but still, like the fans are loyal to a fault, and it's insane. It's just that turnout for that championship parade was just mind-boggling, and like. They haven't gone away. They've just become even more emboldened and even more passionate.
I just the Cavs part of this is like it's ascending in a way that I think is so interesting and fun. It is this post LeBron sort of Cleveland basketball era, and I think the ways that it has come to be popular sort of organically and interestingly, and not like, and I think beyond sort of like the stand-up that some folks have, I think just like the genuine interest in, it's like it's still a very Browns heavy town, but just
it's a Browns town.
This is the Donovan Mitchell stuff going to Guardians games. I am a absolute sucker for like when athletes like show up at different events. Like I think that stuff like
normal people.
Well, it's just like even if it's like promotional and it's like all this stuff, it's like I think it's just cool that like Donovan Mitchell is just like at a Guardians game for 15 innings and tweeting about it. I think it's cool that like Austin Hedges and Tristan McKenzie are smashing guitars. Like I think all of this stuff is fun, and when you get this civic energy and civic positivity and civic like just everything just sort of very on the up and up in a energy way. The Browns sort of being the weirdness because there's a lot of angst over there right now.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of fun, and like this is the fun, the build before the reality sets in, before like there's losses and things don't go exactly how you think. This is the really fun part, and I think I'm just like, let's just like, I want to try to appreciate this better than I think, at least for me, like in thinking about this better than I have in the past, and maybe that's because I'm just old now.
I mean, Chris, you may live in Ohio, but you also are trying to live the moment, is what you're trying to say.
Well, it's not even, it's like, I think it's just like a reminder that like this stuff is just a very human, fun experience.
Yeah, and I mean, that's absolutely it. Like, it's just the like you said, if you have a pulse, like, it's hard not to get excited and get captivated by all this. Like, my fiance is the most casual sports fan ever, but she was checking her phone constantly to check up on the Guardians score when she was doing stuff at her alma mater this weekend. Like, she gets caught up in it, and like even people who are like the diehards, like you can't help but get caught up in the moment because it's just so significant and so big that it's just captivating. Like it's cool. It's just cool.
I'm going Saturday for Game 3. Juiced, already juiced. Will be the coolest thing I do all week is Guardians Yankees Game 3.
That'd be cool. You could always stop by and say, hey.
That's a little harder now that you've joined me in suburban living.
Domesticated, as you will, as one Danny Cunningham would say. So
yes, but I'm gonna drink a very expensive beer and pay a lot for parking. Guess what? It's just gonna be worth it because it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be really cool.
No, it's gonna be super rad.
Just
the
watching
vibes will be immaculate, as we would say.
Well, and also just like I just get such a kick out of the fact that like, number one, I think just it's hilarious, like watching people like sing the SpongeBob song in like a very like I just find that hilarious, like the amount of people, like that guy that went viral because he wore the SpongeBob costume to the game. I thought that was delightful. Ken Carmen tweeted this out, and this is where we're gonna end. Did you see the thing he did where it was like someone said it was like from I think the Ric Flair like clip from the Ric Flair last match, and someone said I'm sorry, and then he like kicked Ric Flair in the head and pinned him, and it was like in reference to Oscar Gonzalez hitting the game-winning home run off of Corey Kluber. It's just like these little like I'll send it to you because I'm not even a wrestling person, and it really made me giggle. This is just like one of these things where it's like the full circleness of it just being like what Corey Kluber being the one who gets homered off of is just this like full circle weird moment where like sometimes there's these little things that happen.
Remember when Kluber sliced his finger on a drone?
That was Bauer.
Oh, that was Bauer. Sorry. Either way, I thought you were gonna mention the Ken Carmen story because I was listening to him on the Browns pregame show. Apparently, they had a listener who had to leave in the 13th inning because his daughter had to get to homecoming, and he missed the end of the game.
That's really tough. We didn't even talk about, Evan, the fact that Richard Jefferson, like, amid all this Draymond stuff, was basically said that there was a fight in the 2016 Cavs and there was punches thrown, and like we have no idea who this is about. And there was a very vague J.R. Smith tweet that came out after this, and I just have like lots of questions, and I'm very relatedly wondering when Kevin Love's next media availability is going to be, because I'm going to be like, hey, Kevin, just for posterity's sake, did you see what Richard Jefferson said? And can you offer any insight? He will say no, and then we'll move on. But I was just like, Richard, are we going to you're just going to casually say that someone punched each other? You guys had like a fight in 2016 and we're now just learning about this?
Yeah, that's the wild thing is like he offhand mentions it and then everyone just moves on with their day. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think Kevin Love will comment on it because, that team was interesting and unique in its own way. And some of them have a relationship with Kyrie, but at least the majority of those guys are still pretty close. So just don't want to kill the vibes.
No way. There's literally going to be no way. But I just like amid all of the reporting on that team and that never got that's wild stuff to me. It's wild stuff.
The tell-all book that will come about that team one day will be, or documentary series on whatever HBO Max becomes will be A+ television.
Not if it's from LeBron. It'll be pretty sanitized if that's the case. Okay, we're gonna end there.
The Last Dance.
The last.
J.R. Smith went to Vegas in between Game 5 and Game 6 because he had to blow off steam.
I mean, I just want a whole episode on Deli drinking too much coffee and getting dehydrated. Let's have like lots of questions about how that happened. Okay, that's gonna be it for today. I want to thank for making Locked On Cavs your first team. What a wild run. Thanks for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. This episode was produced by Jake Stevens. He is, just the man, hanging out on yachts, all that stuff. We'll be back on Tuesday recapping Cavs-76ers. Hope you come back for that one. Now for a great second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet. That's free, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts. Also, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, check that out. Check out Locked On Browns. Check out Locked On Guardians. Check out Locked On Buckeyes if that's your jam. Check out Locked On NBA. There's a lot of great Locked On podcasts. Why not just listen to them all? Until next time, I'm Chris. That's Evan, everyone. Be well. We'll talk to you after Cavs 76ers.